this is a nice little short, brief one where we can actually get into the details of a character options set. I like an online exclusive. I have to say they're my favourite. And of course, to discuss that, I need to bring in one of our mates who also collects. So here he is. Hiya, Cinnamon.
Hi, Brendan. Thanks for having me back again.
I know, so quickly after our last show. But we want character options, don't we? I've been waiting for, you want the announcement, you want to hear what's going on. I actually don't look forward to the releases that come out in the shops because I get sick of having to trail around 20 shops. I do like the online ones.
Yeah, I suppose it's more convenient for this day and age, and at the point, at this time, everything's all online. There's a lot of town centres all across the country of town centres. It's not quite what they used to be. Definitely where we're from, it's not quite the same as even as I remember. A lot of the time it is all about online these days, which it's what it is. It's nature of the beast, I guess.
It is. So here we go. Here's the first one. So basically, yeah, in our Celestial Toy Box today, we're going to be looking at the ruins of Skaro. And so if we take it apart here, there's the presentation of the box. That's what you're getting. It's 3 figures. I don't have that Dalek. I, as you know, started a lot later, so I'm never going to have the complete set. But I thought, oh, the Movellans, nice and tasty, because we jumped more recently with the Dalek sets, and I got worried that we'd missed a little bit out. So I've got the Daleks from recently with the Destiny of the Daleks, but not the ones with the bombs on them. And I haven't got, obviously, the Movellans. So have you already got the Destiny of the Dalek stuff from before with Movellans and everything?
No, I have seen this Dalek before because they released this with the Destiny of the Dalek set. I think it had Tom Baker in it, and then had Davros. They had this sort of certain range for a while. They'd have the Doctor, the Davros, and then 2 Daleks. I did get the 6th Doctor one because at the time there was 2 different variants of the 6th Doctor. There was one with this sort of yellow cravat, I think, and then the traditional blue one from season 22. And of course, I wanted that version. And the only other way I could have got it was the single release, which I think was a bit expensive at the time. Or I may as well have just gotten the bigger package with the Daleks and the Davros. So I ended up getting that. And of course, I think there was a 5th Doctor one as well. And of course, there was a 4th Doctor one. I think it might be 2 4th Doctor ones. Or it was at this point where they were in different ranges of enemies of the 4th Doctor or this one. And of course, there was this one here with the Dalek with the bomb strapped on it. So it seems that I think I could be wrong. I haven't looked at these massively too closely. I don't know if they've just repackaged this or maybe give it a slight repaint.
It's probably that's the case. I'll take you through in detail. I'll do close-ups and everything. But there's the pack. I have to say, I've noticed. Can you see in the background? It looks as though they've got the background bit back again.
Yep.
I think they've listened to some of the complaints because I think the presentation's all right. We hated, as you know, that element where recently they were more flimsy boxes, weren't they? Where basically the plastic was just on the actual figurine. So basically, it looks a bit more compact and stronger again for those collectors. And it looks as though it's got the background, like the Fugitive Doctor TARDIS had a background that you could put in. So yeah, that appeals to me. I can see the Movellan guns, the appliances to put on. So if we go into a little bit more detail first and take a look. So of course you get all the details on the back. Don't think I've ever read that in my life, Cinnamon. I don't think I've ever read any of these.
Well, yeah, a lot of people just probably just discard them and throw them quickly in the bin. I always did. I thought, well, if I've bought the bloody thing, I may as well have a little look. It's usually stuff that you already know anyway. It's usually just again a little bit of information on the particular story in question or about the particular character. Just a little bit like that, just fluff, a little bit of a blurb, really, like a book.
It's interesting they're called Movellan Warriors. I never, ever, ever, ever thought Movellans were warriors. I never saw that in even the book, I don't think. So there we go. There's the 2 Movellans. I can see there's a change in skin color because, yes, the Movellans in Destiny of the Daleks were different ethnic minorities, weren't there? There was a range of them. One of the famous ones was Suzanne Danielle. She was famous at the time. You weren't around, of course, but she was on Blankety Blank and all these celebrity shows. And she was married to Patrick Moore, or dating Patrick Moore, who was on Target. And he was like the BBC's version of the Sweeney. So she was the one for the dads. And then you got a range of people. And I found it really interesting at the time, the Movellans, their design, because nowadays I think people would say this is cultural appropriation. I don't think you'd be allowed to really do this, because obviously it has a kind of more Caribbean, kind of West Indian vibe, doesn't it? And now everything's naughty. You're not allowed to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I think there were particularly androids. I mean, again, to those people who would even bother to amount any sort of fuss about this, you gotta think, well, at the end of the day, it's they're not real. They were literally android. I've only saw the story once, I think, but they're literally android robots. They weren't even real, and the hair always reminded me. I can't remember what they were called. It's like this little toy, and it like lit up, and it had like fiber optic thing. And all the
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
the top of the end of it all like of different colours. That always reminded me of what their hair was like. So I don't look at this and think, oh, it's dreadlocks, or it's cultural appropriation, anything like that.
The Movellans always took me back to, in a way, they remind me of the Thals. I don't know why. I know it's there's eye makeup and everything, but they just always reminded me a bit of the Thals. I don't know if it's because they were robotic. You know, the Thals were so peace loving and basically pathetic, and the Movellans were always very calm, weren't they? And even when you grabbed the power pack out of them, they just were, they slowly wound down. I just there was something about them. I loved the Movellans though, as an idea that they're up against the Daleks. It's a shame we've never seen them again. But I have to say, these two figures, to me, their looks stand out. They look as though everything is as it should be. You've got all the little details. My second picture on the right there is just there's a background, obviously, and then you've got well, it's that power pack was their weak spot, wasn't it? Really.
I think it was.
So yeah, you've got everything there with a Movellan, and I know somebody was moaning that they're the same mold and all the rest of it, but to be honest, I haven't got Movellans. I'm happy to have them. I'm happy to have that Dalek, because I've only got the plain Destiny of the Dalek. I haven't got the suicidal
It's something
ones.
else as well, isn't it? It's something new. I get it because I saw there's been a little bit of discourse about this, and it was a few tweets that I saw, and it was one particular account that I think is dedicated to like this whole action figure range, the whole 5.5-inch range, and he was basically saying, "Oh, people are, some people, it's some people are annoyed that it's stuff from the classic series. Some people are annoyed that it's not stuff from the new series. Some people are annoyed it's not affordable." Which, I mean, in fairness, I think being annoyed that things aren't affordable. I think at the end of the day, the Doctor Who is a family show. Children, I would have thought, would be interested in collecting these. So yeah, I think if being affordable is a top priority, in fairness, but it's something new. It's new figures. I mean, obviously we've got the Dalek before, but again, whether it's a slightly different variant with a different color paint or whatever, but we've had the bomb Dalek before, but the Movellans, it's something new. We haven't had it before. Any way we can expand the figures. I was always happy with some of the recent figures we've been getting for the first Doctor, actually, because again, his era.
Yes.
If you were to be an avid collector and have
Mm.
all the figures from all the different eras, there's a lot of the fourth era, particularly because the fourth Doctor was probably one of the most popular eras of the show. But when you go back to the 60s stuff, first Doctor, all he had was a few Robo Men, I think it was once.
Mm.
Again,
Did he?
Daleks, a few Mechanoids, and that was about it, really. Or in a
I see.
Cyberman, the 60s Cyberman. And same
I'd
with
love
Patrick Troughton, all he had was Ice Warriors and Cybermen, really. So it's nice to see some of those eras actually
Well,
get
we
a bit
still
more
want
love.
the Yeti, don't we? We're always asking about the Yeti. It's the Yeti. I'd love the Yeti. I mean, I have to say, can you see in the background of this, though, when you do zoom in, you can see it says Davros Creator Humanoid, and that is obviously going to be the card of the Movellan interior, isn't it? The ship. You can see.
Mhm.
So that's okay. I like that they've brought that back, because obviously I came late into this, and so the first few sets I bought, yes, they had that kind of cards, that diorama at the back, and then, as you know, for cutting costs, they got rid of that. But it's nice to see they've listened and that's coming back. So I
It's
was
good
going to
as
ask you
well
what.
because just on a side note, when I was growing up, I used to watch a lot of these stop motion kind of things.
Yeah,
It'd be like Doctor Who Adventures, but they use the figures. So I don't know how they did it, but they take pictures and then edit it somehow or film it, and you could watch it. So it's a bit like it was different because then you watch the story on the TV, or then you'd listen to an audio story, and then you'd go on YouTube, and then people would make their own stuff of these action figures and tell their own stories with them.
yeah.
And a lot of the time, they would use sort of sets and dioramas like this. So that's what they were good for. So obviously, to them, they would say, "Oh, it's a costly thing," or people just discard them. Well, a lot of the time people really did appreciate them. I always appreciated them. I always remember getting one of the unit laboratory. You know, of when the third Doctor
Mm,
regenerated into the fourth. It was a
yeah.
nice set. It's just a nice extra thing, really.
Well, you see, because I'm older than you, it takes me back to the 70s when really we had Weetabix packets. And sometimes on the back, you got one piece of cardboard, and that was your diorama. I remember having the third Doctor's TARDIS, and that was just fab. But you see,
You have to eat
little
about
things.
5 boxes of Weetabix just to get one
Oh,
TARDIS or something.
oh
Yeah, I know
God,
the
I
one.
know. And you see, this is the thing now. If I was a kid now, this pack, you see, to me, because we're going to talk about cost, which we don't know what it is. It's an online set, so we know the postage will come on top as well. But the thing is, you've got 3 figures. It's always nice to get 3 figures and not 2. So the last one was the Fugitive Doctor and the TARDIS. But the other thing is you've got the 2 enemies, haven't you? So if I was a kid, I've got a Dalek and I've got their enemies. So you've got the wars and the battles all set up. If you're a collector, I know you don't touch it, but if you're a kid, you've got the 2 enemies, which is a good one. I think that's a good value for money. That.
Yeah, I mean, I think I briefly touched on it last night. I mean, and I think I said, although it was nice, and although I think, again, it's always nice to have more figures that we didn't have before, because, we didn't have Movellans. Um, I think, would this interest me though as a child? Is it a doctor set, or is it a companion, or is it more of a companion or more of a character that I think I would see a bit more? Um, because I think as a child, I didn't see the City of Death for quite a while actually. Yeah, I've watched it twice actually in my life, and I feel like this would have like not interested me. So again, although and I think it depends where the demographic is, because a lot of young people, when I say young people, I mean people at my age, would be collecting a lot of these, especially on Twitter. You see a lot of them, but I think about young children. I mean, I always remember, and this is what they did so well. I think in the early days, the peak, shall we say, of character options, where a lot of we had some silly ones like a damaged Cassandra, which was literally we had normal Cassandra
Yeah.
with the skin, and then you had a version without the skin. It was literally just like, well, what was the point of it? But it was like the charm of it, I guess. At that point, they were just throwing literally any figures. The doctor from the Empty Child, again, he has a figure. Tommy's grandmother as well had a one from the Idiot's Lantern. Again, just random characters
Yeah.
who've got
That's too much.
figures, but I still got them. But like they were so fun because they did have sets. I always remember there was a Satan Pit one where the gondola, I think that the Doctor goes in to go down. There was
Yeah.
one of that. I always remember getting that once after going swimming with my mum. I always remember getting. We got that from Forbidden Planet again. Another example of back when they had a lot of this stuff. Um, so yeah, it's something new. I just wish you
I
know
think I think it's the fact that I think to me I would definitely want this if I wasn't a collector and I was a kid, because it's the monsters. I mean, the Movellans are robots and they're the enemies of the Dalek, and so I can do my wars in the garden. That's all we needed in the 70s. Was our dad was always building, so we had not a sand pit. We had his spare sand before I used it for cement, and so basically we were just playing with sand and soldiers. So this would be fantastic. I know collectors will go, you'd get sand on this. What the hell are you doing? But of course, when I had Star Wars figures in the 70s, they've all been played with. So, nobody thinks you're going to end up on Antiques Roadshow and try and save them. But would you, when we're talking about it now, would you pay any price for this on the online? When I say any price, I don't mean any price. I mean, if that said there were 35 quid, including postage, would you do it?
wow, it really does. It depends. Maybe a couple of years ago, I would have said absolutely. But at this point in my life, where I'm making the transition between you know teenager to now young adult. Well, I am a young adult, but now that I have my own place, and there's bigger things and bigger
Yeah,
responsibilities I have
bills.
to now pay for. It affects that. I mean, right now I can afford it. I can afford it, but it's whether I'd want to afford it. I think that's the
So
question, isn't it?
shall I ask another question then? Because obviously, I will probably buy it anyway because I'm a mug. But I understand bills and cost of living and all the rest of it. So, right, instead of the ruins of Skaro, then, what set would you think we are really missing that we could have, and you would probably pay a little bit extra just to make sure you got it? What we missing? Do you want the beep the meep? Do you want Shooty in his undies? Do you want? Is there something missing like the Yeti? What would you want? What
Well,
would you think? I'd pay
I
top dollar.
saw a few concept. Obviously, I don't think it's real, but I saw a few mock-up images on Instagram, and it was a couple from the 60s. So I think it was because we've already got a 14th Doctor figure, one with the coat, and I saw one with him without the coat on, just the vest. Um, and it was that, and it was the little robot from the Wild Blue Yonder that was in there. I think Donna was in
Oh,
there, and it had a
Jimbo.
nice little package on it. And again, it was just a fan mock-up thing, but it just shows like what you can do. And it's like if that was real, I'd have that in a heartbeat, absolutely. And again, even from the leaked ones that we have seen, if there was another one where it was one if they re-released the 14th Doctor, and then had the I've forgotten it, not beat to meet the guards, one
Wraith
of those.
Warriors.
Yeah, the
Wrath
Wraith
Warriors.
was add one of them, and then maybe a little like beat the me, or maybe another Donna again, another one that I probably would have taken up. Um, or even just recently, we're literally close to season one now. The shoot
Yeah.
we got where first season is almost upon us, and we still haven't got the 15th Doctor figure. And I know that I can't remember exactly because I can't remember when we got the 11th Doctor. 'Cause obviously, I remember waiting for the 11th Doctor era to start, and I remember watching that first episode on what was it, the 3rd of April. And I can't remember if we already had the figure of the Doctor then, or if that was afterwards. But even still, we got the 14th Doctor figure pretty much straight away. I mean, I've even got the box down there. We got that almost pretty quickly after the Power of the Doctor episode came out. So and we've all seen the images of the 15th Doctor and Ruby, and the Beat the Meat plushie. We already know that's pretty much a guarantee.
Mm.
Russell's been showing people around on his phone of what it looks like. So stuff like that I'd be getting right now. And it's not just because it's new stuff, because I collect old stuff. The season 18 Tom, the big brown sort of burgundy outfit. I wanted that for a long time. That was my favorite outfit that he wore. It was just sort
Mm.
of different. I was obsessed
Mm.
with it, and I
Mm.
hunted it down for a long time, and I finally got it, and it's with me here. So, so yeah, so I finally got that. So again, it's all ears that that I'll hunt over, but I think it's you
I
know
mean, I get my head into the idea that if you're mentioning Jimbo might come back from Wild Blue Yonder, I mean, a robot. As a kid, I wanted R2D2, C3PO. I wanted all the robots. When you mentioned earlier the mechanoids, I'd have had them, but I missed that first era. I wasn't collecting then. I was in Australia. But if you look at this, those bombs look exactly like they were done. They've even got them at funny angles because they looked a bit shoddy. Davros didn't exactly pile them on carefully. I think everything does look really accurate to me. This is manna from heaven. If I was a kid, it really is. The details are absolutely great.
Especially when you again, I've always said before. I think when we first met, I think I even said, it's the stark difference between our generations is quite massive. Because at one point, if you wanted to experience a Doctor Who story, you'd have to have the book. You'd be very
Yeah.
lucky if one time during the 90s or something that on Dave or one of the channels Gold or whatever they stuck an old re-repeat or something. But then you look at what we've got here now. That's Blu-ray collection sets of all the you would have loved this in
Yeah.
1993 to have this. I mean, well, I suppose they
Yeah.
were already releasing the VHSs at that point, but a young Brenda would be going mental, bouncing around the room if you could have access to stuff like this. And
Oh,
it's
yeah. I
and
mean,
the quality of the stuff, the merchandise we've got now, compared to the Daypol, it was shoddy little figures that didn't even look like. I remember there was one. I think it was supposed to be the third Doctor. Didn't look nothing like him. Or the
mm,
Fisher Price toys of Leela look nothing like her. I think she even said herself. And again, you look at the ones we've got now. There's a lot of detail on this. You can tell that's obviously Tom. I mean, in fact, this is the second version because they originally released this and the scarf wasn't as detailed. Then they re-released it for the 13th, or I think the 13th Doctor figure set. So it was one where it had Capaldi in it, and then they updated the scarf and made it a little bit more realistic. So if you were to compare the figures, you would eventually see the difference. But again, and the quality's been getting better and better. Again, from the leaked images that we did see, that 15th Doctor figure looked absolutely fantastic. I was honestly
do you
impressed.
think? Do you think the Cinnamon they're changing their strategy slightly? Because I can't remember. I've only been doing this for a few years, but I didn't remember this many online exclusives going on. They tended to just shove them in the shops. I just wonder if they're getting a bit sick of B&M for some reason. I wonder if they're sick of the B&M staff are sick of us all racing round demanding to know which shelf something's been put on. And I just wonder whether it's been worth the hassle. And I just wonder whether they're trying to bring it back into house. The trouble is, I don't know about you or people watching this, but when you phone the website for character options, it closes down. How many times did you go through for the Fugitive Doctor? How many times did it take you to get actually through and buy it?
Well, I didn't buy it because I didn't even grown up. But yeah, you are right. You know, there's a lot of times where a lot of fans will just go into character options, and maybe some fans, obviously not all, but some fans will be a little bit rude, but perhaps towards staff, or or perhaps an entitlement of where are they? And then of course the poor staff that's working in the shop who have no clue what Doctor Who probably even is. Are like, well, I don't know. Well, check the system or anything. So I can imagine there's been a few issues there, but again, it's sad really because again, I remember going into Toys R Us and there's pictures online. If you type in Toys R Us Doctor Who section, there's a massive, and I
Yeah.
mean massive wall, and it's like the little cardboard bits at the side of David Tennant pointing a screwdriver, and he had loads of figures. Again, even just silly little figures of what random character like Tommy's grandmother in the Idiot's Land. Who wants a character of her? But yet they still made one. I still bought it, I guess.
You
So
see,
maybe that
this
goes
was
out my argument of the Movellans. But again, silly things like that. It shows the difference between what the place is, and again, even Russell even spoke about this some sort of podcast when he was talking about things like Doctor Who and the Doctor Who experience, which I was kicking myself that I never even went once, never able to go to that. But things like that. And he was saying, maybe well, depending on the success of the new era, we'll see where we are with things like action figures and experiences and stuff like that. So it's a
mm.
shame because it shows the health of the show, really.
But the-
That because it is, although we can say oh, it's fine, the show's fine. Well, yeah, but is it safe to release all these figures? Because is there a market there?
they've got to be careful now. I think the Ruins of Skaro was a clever idea because it's nostalgic enough. Like I say, it's monsters, and they haven't put that set together. So I think that'll work. I do think that'll be a good driver because I think they've got to be careful now. I was going to say to you though, with the new series, you can actually see in the trailers, like Jinx Monsoon's character, that's made for character options because it's already a kind of comic strip character. You can see the fantasy monsters. Are you going to buy a set of Space Babies?
Well, yeah. I mean, they did have a little. They had but back when they're at their height, I remember there was a one from Series 4, and it was literally a packet. It was just a big box. It was about God, was it 40, 50 adipose? There was so many adipose. It was just an
Oh, yes.
just
Yeah.
adipose, and that was it. And I think at that point, again, there was a whole thing about collecting, and there was an incentive for kids to sort of collect them all because you'd get a little spare part. So if I would get like a Doctor figure, you'd get the Doctor, and then it'd come with a part, or maybe the stick. 'Cause it had the Vespiform Wasp from the Unicorn and the Wasp. You get it once you collect them all, you could put them all together, and you get a whole brand new figure, of a Wasp. I think they
Mm,
did it with the Gelf
mm.
a few times. There was just things like that. It's common. It's not just in Doctor.
So
They do it for all action figure ranges. It's
do
cool.
you I mean, I've got naughty now, and of course, I've got a bit more money. So basically, I try and buy two sets, one to keep in the box, so collector, and one not to play with, but I kind of have them for display. What do you do with them then? You get one box if you do, and what do you do? Just store them?
Um, it depends really. It depends how much I value it. So, for example, again, going back to Daypol, there was a Daypol set. That, again, another thing like that Doctor that I just shown you there. I wanted it for the longest time. And I'm talking for the longest time. It was the seventh Doctor. It was Mel. It had a green K9, which was the thing, green
Green.
K9, and it had the TARDIS set. And it actually had the TARDIS set, and it had a couple of the walls, the
Yeah.
panels with the round things on, and it had the actual console. And it actually goes up and down the time rotor. And again, I think that came out literally around the time. I'm looking at it now. I would get it down, but it's a few things on top of it. But and it came out around that time, around the late 80s, because you can tell by the packaging. And again, that must have been that must have been great for people at the time to get that. And it's quite rare these days, apparently. I checked online, and it goes quite costly, and I managed to get it quite cheap.
It it
So again,
it
that
seems
that that,
mad
that
to
would keep
me.
in the box. I wouldn't take that out really.
But this is
Um,
this. in a way, I know a little bit after our last question, I suppose, but it seems to me it's quite funny, isn't it? Because I feel as though there's more adults buying them than kids. It's like I think they'd be great as toys and kids to play with, not to collect and spoil. As in, the thought of a kid keeping it in a box, just I think is the worst thing to do. The kid has to get it out and play with it. And I can't imagine if you had the whole set of all these things. I think I would really be in heaven. But so you're gonna hold back on this? Are you, Runes of Skaro? Are you gonna hold back?
I guess we'll see. I guess it depends what frame of mind. If I see it maybe on eBay fairly cheap, I maybe I will. But I have to be honest. I found myself not rushing out to get these as much anymore. Again, if it's a Doctor figure, like I say, I'll snap it up. But again, I don't know. Maybe it's just the place I'm in. Again, I'm more interested in collecting sort of the stuff like this. That you can see there, the steel books. Now, these steel books, I've probably paid again, and this shelf here and that shelf there. The amount of money that I've spent on these, on just one of them, the Series 1, Series 1 Steelbook. I dare even say how much I spent on that. I'm a bit ashamed, to be honest. Even these ones, I didn't even collect it because, again, I didn't even start collecting the Blu-rays up until fairly recently, maybe like a year or two ago. And I missed out at the first cup called The Bunch. It was around Series 2. Season 2 was the first one that I actually pre-ordered. And obviously, you might get that at the regular price. But obviously, the rest, like for example, Season 18, Season 19 are ridiculous. Like, and Season 10, they all go for up to around £300 each. They're ridiculous. Season 9 of the Steelbooks, extortionate prices. So I managed to pay £750 for just a couple of them. And then like Season 20, Season 9, Season 15, Season 2, those ones I managed to pre-order when they've been announced. Again, it's short, but again, I took them out of the box. So it depends how you value things, and
it does. Well, I am now a glutton because I'm like a spoiled kid. So basically, I am going to get that. I say I'm going to get it. I'm going to have to spend, I don't think it was about 5 hours last time on and off on the blooming website, but you get there in the end. So that was today's episode of Celestial Toy Box, The Ruins of Skaro, character options online. We reckon it'll the end of April or early May will be the date when we all have to spend a couple of hours online and fight each other to get our 1 or 2 sets that you're allowed before. Thank God there's a limit. And yes, looking at prices, it could be $24.99 plus about $2.99 post and packaging. But because it's 3 figures, I think we might be around the 32 quid figure. So thanks to Cinnamon for joining us. And we'll see you again. Let's hope something else comes out. But thanks for joining us, Cinnamon. And we'll finish there. See ya.